Hello, everyone. This is Minutes with Ming, Lockdown Sessions. I'm here with another exciting episode with my friend and colleague, Brandon Martin.
Hello.
And I'm happy to introduce him to you as one of my favorite conservationists that I have ever seen. And he's here to talk about his work, about himself, and our shared passion for environmental stuff. I will hand it to you, Brendan. How did it go?
Hi. So I'm Brendan. I'm currently working at the Ulinks Center for Community-Based Research. We're a not-for-profit located in Minden, Ontario, so right up in the heart of cottage country. Um, I guess, did you want to start with how we met
Oh
on
yeah,
this?
okay, yeah, for sure. Mhm.
So Ming and I met when we were at the University of Waterloo. It was the Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve course, right?
Yes.
In the winter, yeah. So we were
Mhm.
up in Killbear Provincial Park for a week as a field course, learning about the Biosphere Reserve and having a good time in the very, very cold week that we were up there.
Yeah, very cold for some reason.
Yeah, it was freezing. But yeah.
Okay, Brendan. That's very interesting because this drive me back a lot of interesting memories. Back in time we have a lot of discussions and stuff. But what the most important is, what drives your passion for the great outdoors?
Well, I've always been very connected with the outdoors. When I was growing up, I was very lucky that my family lived right next to our local conservation authority, one of their properties. Our house backed right onto it. So my brother and I would spend hours and hours in the spring, summer, and fall just hanging out in the woods with our friends, and always had a very strong connection with the woods. And then that kind of developed into high school when I got really involved in geography, in some environmental groups, and then ended up at University of Waterloo with my Bachelor's of Environmental Studies. And then after that, working for a few conservation authorities, all scattered throughout southern Ontario. Um, Kind of leading up into Fleming College with my environmental technician diploma. And yeah, it's been with me throughout my life, and it's just something that I've always had this very strong personal connection to, and it's always been there for me. So I have a feel like I have a duty to protect the environment.
Yes, as we all should,
Yes.
by the way. And can you please tell the audience about what's your job do and what's your job title, and give us a little bit of your day-to-day and um, future events. Let's just say.
Sure. So my title at Ulinks is the very long and convoluted Aquatic and Terrestrial Biomonitoring Project Coordinator.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's impossible to fit on a business card, which has become an issue as we've grown. But yeah, so my main purpose at Ulinks is to coordinate the community-based research projects specifically relating to the environment and biomonitoring. So what we do at Ulinks is our main purpose is to connect community organizations that have research questions with undergraduate and postgraduate students who are willing to do research within the community. And this is different than traditional academic research because it's specifically driven by the community, whereas opposed to traditional research where academia, a professor or a student comes up with a question, they answer that question, and then they give their thesis or write a paper or make a poster or whatever. Um, this way, that knowledge, instead of just staying within academia, is actually given to the community. And this way, they can continue to grow and then ask further questions and work off of it that way. So we find it typically works well for environmental projects because it allows the students to kind of come out, uh, hang out with the people in the community, get some networking done there, and also gives them a lot of really good real world skills. where they may not get that specifically just from being at university doing book learning. So it's kind of a win-win situation. The community answers their questions, or gets their questions answered, and then the students get a lot of real-world expertise.
Wow, that's like really like grassroots type of feel, but a grassroots feel combined with academia to prove what they're saying or what asking their questions per se.
Yep. Yep.
And well, like wow, like I'm actually like I never really thought of combining these two fields and stuff. Obviously, there's the like an economics perspective, like how do you guys need to like um not be profitable per se, but sustain
Mhm.
your work over time. And I really like that.
Yeah.
And like what is your day-to-day like? Like
So, well, it's very seasonal, like most environmental jobs are. So I guess our year starts at kind of an odd time. So we're actually right at the end of our typical year right now. Um, we kind of follow what the universities do. So our year officially starts at the 1st of June. So basically halfway through the calendar year almost. But June 1st, we start looking at what projects we're going to develop with the community in the fall and have ready for students to be matched once they come back to campus. From there, we will go out to the community. We do a call to action. So we have the community members bring up their ideas as to what research questions they would like to have answered in the coming fall. We write those up in a standardized format so that we can simply give that information to the students when they're looking at what projects that they potentially would want to work on. And then that kind of continues throughout the summer. It's kind of an ongoing process. It's very fluid. There's no real set kind of timelines for that. It's with a lot of these people, they're just volunteers, so they come up with these ideas whenever they can. So we get them even into the fall, the early fall after Labor Day. We'll be still getting project ideas that we have to
oh
quickly write
wow.
up. Yeah, so that's the summer months, and then into fall is when things start to get really busy. So for a lot of the projects that I work on, they're longer projects, so they're 2 semesters. So they'll start in September and end in March or April of the next year. So once September comes, we have to match all of those. It's a lot of paperwork.
Wow.
We're not a part of Trent University or Fleming College. We're a third party. So there's a lot of paperwork that we need to sort out with the community hosts. There's like health and safety paperwork, blah, 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 all the boring stuff. That's the boring part of my job. But then after that's all signed and the students have been matched to a project that they would like to work on and that the host also approves of the students, so they make sure that they're compatible with each other. We, for my projects, that's when we'll go into the field and do field work. A lot of what we do is monitoring. We've, in the past 2 going on 3 years now, we've had a big focus on aquatic monitoring. So my job has basically been just about helping the students get ready to sample lakes for benthic macroinvertebrates, which are the small little bugs. There's small spineless organisms that live on the bottoms of lakes and rivers is our typical explainer. But
Benthics.
they're great. I love them. Everyone, I'll always show PowerPoint presentations or whatever to people when we're explaining the program. And they're all like, oh, that's in the river. That's gross, blah, blah, blah. But they're very small. They're like smaller than your thumb type thing. They can get bigger, but yeah. But they what they do is they tell us about the health of the lake. So they live either part or all of their life just living in the water. So some of them are very sensitive to changes in that environment. So if things get too hot, which is a problem that we're seeing in the Halliburton region as climate change continues to march onwards, a lot of the lakes are warming up, and we're seeing that in the data every year. In addition to the big ticket issue in Halliburton County, because we're in cottage country, is shoreline development. So people will come up, build a cottage, completely level the lot. So all the trees, all the shrubs, all the grass, everything that was there before, all the vegetation is just completely stripped Then they build the house, and then they put in their nice manicured lawn and maybe a retaining wall to keep their lawn from falling into the lake. A lot of that can severely impact the benthic communities. And even though we're fairly early into this process, right now we're just kind of trying to establish a baseline. It's becoming clearer and clearer that there's quite a divide between a lot of the lakes that have been developed for a long time. So we have some lakes that have been fully developed since like the 50s and 60s, very small lakes, very close to a highway. So they have a lot of cottages all the way around them. They show significant degradation in the benthic communities as opposed to some of the lakes further away from the well-beaten path that probably don't have as many cottages on them. The cottages that are there have very large properties. A lot of it's very wooded. So that all that exciting stuff happens in the fall. We go out and do all that sampling, and then the students will go back, analyze their samples, get all the data to us. And then the students start working on the reports and analyzing all the data. So that kind of takes place from like the fall up until about now. And we finish off the year by presenting all of this data to the community through our celebration of research, which is a time for all of us to get together. And I will get to that and how that works in 2021. All of us to get together in the community and look at all the research that's been done to make sure that that knowledge is transferred to the community and that it could potentially be used or it could spark an idea in someone's mind. Obviously this year, because of COVID, we can't do that.
Oh no.
So we've opted to do that in some online fashion. And I think we published? I think we published the invite just the other day. So by the time this goes out, if anybody watches this and is in Haliburton County, there will be an invite link on our website, ulinks.ca, if people want to hop in. But yeah, that's where you can kind of see all of the research that we do and have done in the past year. And it's a good community building event for everyone, especially we're hoping this year because everyone's been very isolated from each other, especially in Haliburton County. So.
Wow. Like that sounds like a big tasking, like trying to set everything up during COVID and then try to determine if construction on the lakefront is good or bad for the environment. Like obviously it's bad, but like it just more detailed research wise and stuff. Like, wow, like I never thought it would be that extensive. Like this reminds me of one of our ERS field work courses, not with Dr. Yates, but there's another one right after in like August or something. And it's very similar to that idea.
Yep, exactly. I was a part of one of those courses.
Okay.
And yeah, it's very similar. That one, there were a couple of projects that you could have worked on for that, but it is very similar because you're working with community organizations and actually answering questions that they have.
Yes. Like I feel like the construction company should ask you guys for consultation and prior for them to do construction. Like do you think that that's a fair point?
So we don't really do that. I think there is definitely a need for that in Haliburton County. A lot of I don't want to demonize the construction companies. To give your viewers a bit of a background, right now in Haliburton County, there's a very hot ticket item in a shoreline preservation bylaw that's been in the works for over a year now. It has people very divided because people want to be able to do what they dream about on their own properties. They want their property to reflect the way that they want to enjoy their property, basically. But there's also a fine balance between getting what you want and also preserving the shared resource that we all have. So there are two very polar opposite sides to this debate about this bylaw. And the construction companies are obviously on one side of that. We we don't provide consultation services per se. It's more so of a research question. But we are also looking into incorporating this monitoring more into the community and having some sort of organization exist in Haliburton County that does that sort of thing. So not necessarily like a conservation authority, because that requires a lot of legislation to take place. The province needs to approve it. All the municipalities need to approve it as well and have a budget for it, which there's not much of a budget right now in Haliburton County. It's a very, actually, the locals who live in Haliburton County, we're one of the, we have the lowest average household income in one of in any county in Ontario, or close to the bottom. So the people who actually live in Haliburton County are very impoverished. So the county doesn't actually have that much money to work with. So I don't think a conservation authority is in the works. But there's some ideas floating around for there to be some sort of environmental monitoring organization of some kind. It probably won't have any planning or legislative weight behind it. More so like a lobbying type thing. Or,
okay.
Yeah.
But I figured that since your organization posts data, like as you said before, like provide a link and stuff. I think it's important for the construction companies maybe to at least skim over the data and see, this might be very fragile. Like that might be a good, like, like, because it's all open source, right? So
yeah,
it's just maybe have a look. Maybe their environmental coordinator, if they have one, can look at it, like just guys through. Okay, this my area not be, or come up with what should I say, like a preventive measure after the construction, to when the life of the construction goes down, it's more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like that could be also a factor. Like you it's very hard to, let's say, win both sides of the story, like have a win-win, but why don't we have like a win and tie, like a compromise type of situation?
Yeah. And I mean, people in Haliburton, the cottage industry is their bread and butter. Like the vast majority of all workplaces in Haliburton County are in some way tied to the cottage industry. I think it's like 75 to 80% of all of the employment in Haliburton is in some way tied to the cottage industry. So everyone in Haliburton understands that it's important. And I don't think anybody in Haliburton wants to see it completely go away or slow down even. Like there's a lot of money to be made. Haliburton, people say it's the next Muskoka, but it's already the next Muskoka. There are huge mansion like cottages on some of these lakes, and millions and millions of dollars being poured into the county in real estate. So that's already there.
Oh yes, yes.
But what people really want to see is they want to see that these shared resources aren't impacted in a way so that everyone, even these people that are coming up even just for a couple weeks a year and they just want to enjoy their cottage, they don't want their cottage, their lake, to be filled with algae or filled with invasive species or any of that. They want it to be nice too, because that's the big draw to Haliburton. It's still kind of rural and rugged, kind of like Muskoka is, but slightly more so. So yeah, I think it would benefit both sides definitely to have some sort of compromise on that. In my personal opinion, I think that the bylaw is very ambitious. From what I've read about it, I'm not an expert in it by any means, but it seems to be, to me, it seems fairly middle ground compared to what it could have been. Like it still allows people to remove trees if they're going to be a hazard to anyone's health or anyone's property, stuff like that. I think this is what needs to be done, and they're taking one very large step to reach this, which is kind of interesting, instead of many small steps. But I think given the situation where just the amount of development that's happening in the county right now is very high, I think this needs to be done now, just before we get to that kind of tipping point.
Yeah, so I feel like we're already at the edge of that already, like that.
Yeah,
that brink already. Like I understand, but like the town needs money, but also at the same time, where's the proper balance of that, because obviously the economics of your town is very important to a lot of the decision makers, and
Yep.
how we can address that. And building on this case per se, why do you think that this particular case and future cases is important to conservation as a whole, in context with your company?
So, that's a good question. I think in the context of Ulinks, we want our ultimate goal is to make sure that Halliburton is the best that it can be for everyone living in it. We try and assist that goal by transferring knowledge from post-secondary institutions to the community in a way that's meaningful and not just kind of a token like, here, you can have access to our library type thing, where it's like, you can learn, but like, we're not really giving you any answers to anything. It's just, you can do that on your own. We're also empowering people to make these research questions on their own. We help them, obviously, because a lot of these people, a lot of these people are just volunteers. So a lot of the lake associations that I work with, they're made up of a board of volunteers who are just cottagers. So they may be real estate agents or lawyers or doctors or retired welders, or there's a wide range of people, blue collar, white collar, Canadian, American, international. We deal with all of them, right? They all love coming to Halliburton, and I would consider them a part of Halliburton. Even the people that are just here temporarily, they're a big part of what makes our county our county. So ensuring that the environment of Halliburton remains attractive to all those people is very important. And because that's one of the big draws that brings people up to Halliburton County. 10 years ago, it was the next Muskoka. So it hadn't been fairly developed, like as developed as the Muskokas are, where there's cottages on every lake and massive cottages and really, really expensive. It's getting to that now, and I think that was the next step. That was always going to be the next step in Halliburton's development. I don't think that's something bad. I think that's the next progression, but that needs to also be balanced with the fact that we don't want to take away the very rugged, relatively untouched environment that existed in Halliburton before that all started. So that's kind of where Ulinks comes in. So we've prior to this, we've done environment projects, just kind of like one-offs and stuff. But with the establishment of my position specifically, we're looking to kind of push further into that and deeper as well, because a lot of the projects that we did in the past 5 or 6 years were very surface level. So just, we want to know about this type of bird, or we want to do something about bluebird boxes, or learn about frogs, like just very kind of surface level things, very important. And a lot of them were based in education and stuff, but it was just very surface level and didn't really go, and then what? There wasn't that next step. It was just, oh, here's some bluebird boxes. Great. End of story. By the way, I'm not dissing on the Bluebird Project. The Bluebird Project was excellent. If Amanda ends up watching this, I love the Bluebird Box Project. It was really good. But a lot of them didn't really take that next step. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this biomonitoring program that I've been hired to coordinate. We're really looking at continuing this research long term. So for a lot of these lakes, like I said earlier in the interview, we're just kind of getting started with this. We've been doing this for 3 years on 6 lakes now. This past year, we upped it to 17 lakes that we're working with. And that's also in the city of Kawartha Lakes, where I currently live, and the county of Peterborough as well. There's a couple lakes that we've kind of, satellite lakes that we've incorporated. But they are committing to having their lakes be sampled theoretically indefinitely, but at least for the next 3 to 5 years to kind of understand what the baseline level is for these benthos. And that's also given us the opportunity to talk with them more, find out what their concerns are for the lake. So for example, Eurasian Milfoil is an invasive water weed that is present in quite a few of the lakes up here because people bring their boats and stuff, and sometimes pieces of it just happen to cling on to a motor or little nicks and stuff in the bottom of the boat, and it'll get transported to this new lake. So now we're talking about potentially doing some long-term projects on Eurasian milfoil monitoring, and that's kind of started the conversation going forward for there. And we've also talked with a lot of people who are very similar minded to us, where they want to see this continue for a very long time, even if Ulinks as an organization disappears. So now we're kind of taking that next step that we've kind of established this kind of baseline program with the benthics, and we're talking with more community leaders, and we're trying to get it pushed so that there's an organization separate from Ulinks, but that works with Ulinks to carry out all this monitoring. Because ultimately, our whole goal is research, but the way that our organization is structured, and I won't get too much into this because it's really getting into the weeds at this point. We're not structured to do all of that monitoring ourselves. Where the main focus is to provide the community with research. And while this is research, that's not the research that Ulinks was specifically designed to do. So having people in the community volunteer to kind of help lead that is really going to be the next step for us. And we're working on that right now. We're starting a steering committee this spring where they're going to kind of guide the program into the future, but also keep it from expanding too large. So we're dealing with 17 topics versus 3. So like we're trying to keep it from just ballooning in size and keeping it to be realistic. But yeah, so very long-winded explanation, but it's also a very complicated and nuanced thing, especially in Halliburton County right now.
That's lots of gray, lots of stakeholders in position of everything, lots of moving parts. You have to, drive around and obstacles and stuff. Like it's very hard, and considering you're dealing with a big area too, it's very hard to push through a lot of things. But I think if you keep pushing through, it will make it. Because from what I've seen, that you guys gain a lot of trust from the community, and they obviously like you there as like a scientific, rigorous testing people to help with their community and stuff, to make sure that their community is safe, good, and the conservation and people can come back to the land is eventually in the future and stuff, like to be pristine as possible. And so like I really respect that. And one final point, and I guess this is like an open-ended question: where do you think the future of Ulinks and for you guys as a whole, where does that take you guys from there?
So despite what I said about Ulinks not existing in the future with regards to the steering committee, whatever, that's more of a safe measure. I don't see Ulinks going anywhere anytime soon. We've been working in Halliburton County for, I think it's, depending on when you start counting, because there are 2 official dates that Ulinks started. We've either been working in the county for 20 years or 30 years in one way or another. So we've been here for a long time. We're fairly well established in the community. People know us. People have grown up with Ulinks. I don't foresee Ulinks going anywhere. And I think this new program that we've started this past few years is just kind of us pivoting to continue to grow and meet the needs of the community. So I see this as probably the greatest period of growth that Ulinks will see in a long time, and the greatest period of growth that Ulinks has seen in a long time. We've always been growing slowly and making new connections and stuff, but I think this has kind of been an explosion of growth, and I think it will probably continue at least for the next 3 or 4 years. So.
Wow, that's like to me, it's a very ambitious project, and and for you to coordinate that, I got lots of respect for that and stuff. and like that's just like literally trying to help a community, especially how passionate you are and how open-minded you are, and you're open to different form of discussions, but in the end that will ultimately help the community and move the community forward as a whole.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
This is my first management job, so
Okay.
I hope I've done a good job.
No, yeah, I think you're doing great, Brandon.
Thank you.
But yeah, in closing, I want to thank Brandon Martin to take for his time to come and talk to us about his work at Ulinks. And when this video uploads, I will post the necessary links from Brandon's work and his Instagram. If you want to find out more about what he's doing, more details on his social media life per se, and please like and subscribe, and see you on the next episode. Thank you very much, Brandon. Bye.
Bye.
See you on the next episode. Thank you very much, Brandon.
No worries. 1 sec. The package just came.
Oh.
I'll be right back.
Okay. I'll edit that out. Sounds like number 2 to me. I think I'm going to keep this up because I think it's hilarious.
Do you know what a cricket is?
Like the insect that makes a sound like the cricket from like Mulan.
I think that's the idea that they wanted to capture when they were naming the company.
Okay.
But it's like, what's the best way to describe it? So it's like
wait, hold on. Just still on